right, we'll get going in a minute. All right, we'll get going. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Jones Edmonds Engineering Rocks podcast. I am Ken Vogel, Managing Director of our Civil Environmental Group at Jones Edmonds and the host of today's show. Each month, our podcast will bring to you exciting guests and topics related to engineering. And as my guests and I are talking, please send in any questions you may have through the chat function. Give us your name so we can, address that question specifically to you. And we'll also leave some time at the end, hopefully, to answer some questions as well. I want to welcome my guest today is Ramon Gavarrete. Thanks for being here, Ramon.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing? Ramon is the Public Works Director and County Engineer for Alachua County. He oversees engineering, surveying, traffic operations, fleet management, critical facilities, real property, and of course, roads and bridges divisions. Before coming to Alachua County in 2016, Ramon served the residents of Highlands County as County Engineer and Solid Waste Director since 1996. And he holds a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Florida International University and is a licensed professional in the state of Florida. Something we're going to talk about more in a few minutes. Ramon is a member of the National Association of County Engineers, NACE, and was past president in 2014 and 15. Also a member of the Florida Association of County Engineers and Road Superintendents, FACERS, since 1998. So Ramon, again, I want to thank you for being here today. It's awesome to have you as a guest on the podcast.
Thank you, Ken, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Before we jump into some of the technical topics that we'll talk about today, I like to have my guests talk a little bit about themselves, other than engineering and their job, so we can get to know a little bit, about you a little bit better.
Well, I'm from Nicaragua, and I came into exile in Miami in 1983. It was not too difficult of a transition because my siblings and myself went to an American school in Nicaragua. So we knew the language, and we've always been privy to the culture of this country. So that part wasn't too hard. I mean, obviously exile is exile. And then my parents came in later the same year in December. I go to the family church here in Gainesville. And I've also been a Rotarian since 2003. So it's been a long-term Rotarian, and also I serve as president and treasurer of my club when I was in Sebring in Highlands County. I am very happily married with my wife now of almost 28 years. I have two wonderful children. They're all both now young adults and both graduates from the University of Florida. So like you said, yeah, there's the Gator Chomp. Okay. Like you said, Ken, I am a member of the National Association of County Engineers, NACE. I actually had the honor of serving as president of that organization in 2014 and 2015. And I also serve as president of the state affiliate of NACE, FACERS, in 2003 and 2004. I actually served 2 years as president of FACERS at that time. So that's just a little about me, and you already covered the professional part. So I guess we can move forward now.
I appreciate that, Ramon. I like how much you are involved in, your community as well as, the profession. It's great to see that involvement outside of, the typical daily job stuff.
Yeah.
Great to see. So just a reminder, if you have any questions for Ramon or myself, don't forget, use the chat function and provide us your name, and we'll try to get that question answered for you. So we just talked a little bit about how, Ramon, you're into NACE, and this past summer you took sounds like a pretty awesome trip to the White House as part of NACE. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about what that trip was for, and what you did there in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, just this past July 16th, I was invited by the White House to actually attend the president's event called the Rolling Back of Regulations. This is actually to help on projects and every other, a lot of red tape that has been eliminated. Um, this invitation was possible because of the efforts of NACE and FACERS, my involvements at a national and state level. You know, thanks to my previous employer, Highlands County, and my current employer, Alachua County, for allowing me to participate in NACE as past president also, and FACERS. This invitation was forwarded to me. So a group of us from NACE and FACERS, including another gentleman from Florida, Scott Herring, attended the event in the White House on July 16th. I want to make sure that people understand NACE's effort is in streamlining the delivery of federal projects. When us local agencies get a federal funds, there's a lot of red tape that we have to navigate. Florida, I believe, and I'm going to get into a little bit better, is actually a pioneer in streamlining the LAP, what's called the LAP process, which is the local agency process program here in Florida. But there's other states have to go through a lot of red tape in the permitting process, even for a small project like a turning lane. They have to go do extensive environmental studies. That most of the times the environmental study is actually more expensive than the actual project. And what they are impacting is current right away. They're not buying new right away. There's nothing that hasn't been mowed for years. But yet a lot of these states had to do all that extensive permitting. With the efforts of NACE and now with the event that we're starting, a lot of that has been streamlined. We are still complying with all the environmental regulations, both state and federal. That is for habitat and for stormwater. So that's one thing that I want to stress. We are maintaining the environmental safeguards while eliminating a lot of the federal red tape or bureaucracy, like people commonly know it. In Florida, we get a lot of federal aid for our local roads. Small counties like Highlands County, where Gator Howerton is, has been the recipient of a lot of federal aid also for local roads and sidewalks, and so has Alachua County now also. So it has been a long road to get to the point where we are today. I believe in NACE, we started like in 2008, talking about streamlining and the problems that we were having. In Florida in 2010, we established what's called the Local Agency Program Community of Practice. It's a work group that is formed of Federal Highway Administration, higher level employees, Florida Department of Transportation, decision makers, also, and representative from the local agencies. That includes counties, cities, and also the metropolitan organizations, MPOs. American Public Works Association and FACERS are very active in that group. And we have been able to streamline a lot of the process, including the construction and the plan reviews over the years, to the point that previous Federal Highway Administrator, Victor Mendez, back also around 2012, 2013, ordered all the states to actually look at the Florida model of the lab community of practice and implement that, a form of that in their states. A lot of states have followed through with that. And it's actually one of what is called the Everyday Count initiative of the Federal Highway Administration. So Florida was a pioneer on that. And our group has become, this lab community of practice group is now more than just for federal aid issues. Now we're also getting into any state issues that we need to discuss. So it's a very good forum to bring issues that people have maybe with funding or process, inspections, and other things. So
yeah, that's a great work that you've done with NACE, and I can see why you guys were invited to the White House. But I think what we also need to know is, did you go in the White House? Who did you meet? And did you get the hamburgers like they gave the Clemson football team?
No, we did not get burgers. You know, it was bring your own lunch basically, but you know, because of COVID-19, DC is basically shut down.
Right.
We still had the event, but it was a wonderful opportunity. President Trump has had his entire cabinet present, the vice president, so we got to meet a lot of these folks. Great opportunity. And for me, it was really a real blessing and a great opportunity. You know, I mean, as an immigrant coming to this country to be able to attend an event in the White House, I cannot think of any bigger honor than that. So
that is awesome. Well, Gator is asking a question, but it's part of what we were going to talk about anyway, which was a little bit about COVID-19 and how it's affected all of us in many ways. You know, so not only, we'll talk about funding in a minute, but how has it affected, you know, your operations and what you've had to do to change in your operations in dealing with the pandemic that's gone on in the past 6 months?
You know, just like many other local governments, around the second week of March, we got the order of basically closing our buildings to public access. All non-essential buildings basically were closed to public access. Now the jail was still open, sheriff office was open, you know, fire rescue, that continue, EMS. Office personnel was then directed to work from home for quite some time, and I still got about 50% of my staff still working from home. We alternate coming into the office, but we want to maintain still a lot of social distancing when we walk the hallway. So we are in meetings where we cannot keep the social distancing, we wear the masks. One thing that did happen was that non-essential activities basically were suspended. But as you probably know, Ken, public works is actually an essential function. So a lot of my staff, especially the road department, continue to respond to emergencies like fallen trees or safety issues, potholes, edge drops. So my staff, my field staff, was still working alternating schedules. We only allowed at one time only one person per vehicle. Now we're allowing 2 people per vehicle with a mask. Surveying also was something that got kickstarted a few weeks after we suspended operations with those guidelines. And even today, we're only allowing two persons per vehicle with a mask on. You know, we had some delays. Obviously, mowing was suspended for actually about 2 months because a lot of folks felt that mowing was not an essential function. Unfortunately, what that resulted was on the grass growing to 30 to 48 inches tall, and now we're playing catch up. But
I think I've noticed that around.
Yeah, but we are. I mean, my road department entirely is back to work with following the safety guidelines for COVID for the pandemic. Grading of line roads is back on schedule, which is every 2 to 3 weeks now. But mowing probably won't be caught up until probably sometime now in the winter. We're going to continue to mow until we are caught up so that we are not behind the 8 ball come the next season. The other thing that happened was because we knew revenues were going to be affected, you know, there were some roads in our county where traffic volumes fell 80 to 90%. We monitor some of the busiest roads, and back on the height of people not working, our traffic volumes were down an average of 70%, like on Tower Road, University, you know, 441, busy roads like those, 43rd, were down 70%. That translates into people buying less gas, which is our revenue. So we're going to get into revenue a little bit later, as you know. So one of the things that we did is we froze all vacant positions. So we did not fill any positions since about March, April until now. Today I have actually 21 vacancies. Because of the new year coming up, you know, us locals, we start our fiscal year October 1st. We have been now allowed to fill for public works. I'm filling in 9 vacancies out of the 21 that I have vacant, but that's just to be advertised. I still don't expect to fill my vacancies until around late December or January. Right. So we have that also has caused some delays in some things, as you know, when you have, let's say, out of the 20, I got about 11 of those positions are in the road department. So you have less operators, less laborers. Some functions are gonna suffer. So that's what has happened to us, and I hear that story from a lot of my peers across the state and the country. Um, Now, our critical facilities division, which is maintaining all the buildings that are 24/7 operations, like the jail, law enforcement buildings, fire and EMS buildings, those continue to work through the pandemic without suspension.
Well, seems like you've done a great job keeping things going throughout this, and hopefully it starts to ease up a little bit over the next few months.
Yeah, staff has done a great job. I cannot say enough about my staff.
So you've mentioned a couple of things that we're about to talk about. You know, public works, obviously one of the bigger components is roads and bridges. When you talk about funding, and you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot over the past 6 months, a lot less traveling going on, which means, like you said, a lot less gas being bought, which in turn means less gas taxes being put into funds for roads and bridges. So how obviously we can tell how that affected the county, but how's that affecting the budget? What are you looking for to next year, and how you're going to deal with the lower tax generation rates?
Some people might know in Florida we have up to 12 cents of local gas tax. That's just for locals to use. The state does keep a little bit off the top of all the 12 cents. The last 5 cents, which is actually called also the Elms Nickel, are used for capital projects. Not all the counties in the state of Florida have all 12 cents, but I would say the majority of us have it. For Alachua County, the result of the current pandemic was a reduction of about $600,000 for the year. And this is actually to next year now. $600,000 less revenues for operations. That would have affected materials purchasing, culverts, possibly even affecting personnel. We also experienced almost $600,000 also reduction for our capital funding. Like I said, the last 5 cents are only used for capital projects like locally, for example, a lot of that funding went to the 8th Avenue connection and extension projects. So it did affect us. As far as operations though, because of the foresight of the managers and the directors, that we froze the positions that were vacant. I also froze the use of overtime and limited the overtime use only for emergencies. I just now last week said, okay, we can start working overtime. We were able to actually save enough funding for operations to be able to continue our budget for next year, basically. Our operations budgets did not get cut. I still have 11 of those 21 positions frozen, but they would have not been filled anyways until about January or February due to our hiring process. So yes, I still have vacancies, but at least my budget really did not suffer a huge reduction, if any.
So do you see road projects that you've had planned going on as scheduled, or are you still?
No, well, the ones that were scheduled already for this year and most of the ones that were scheduled for next year are still going to be moving forward. Like I said, we experienced a $600,000 reduction for capital projects. And in addition to that, the Board of County Commissioners here in Alachua County, since 2016, 2017, had been allocating about $3 million a year from general fund, which is property taxes, towards resurfacing program. That was increased by 10% in 2019 and 2020. Unfortunately, though, because of the current pandemic, we had to reduce the funding from the general fund also for resurfacing projects by about $1 million for current year. For next year. Next year starts October 1st, by the way, like I said, for us. That did mean that we had to delay some projects. We had to push some projects out a year or two to be able to maintain the capital program. If the revenue projections were way too conservative, what we hope to be able to do is to then modify our capital program maybe next year or in the middle of next year to be able to, again, do some of the projects that we had to delay.
Well, that kind of leads into the next kind of topic we were going to talk about is, when it comes to roads and bridges, obviously the public is, well, it's very visible to the public, and, the public becomes many times your engineers because they tell you which roads they want repaired. But in reality, tell me how you in the county decide which roads to repair and how you repair them.
Well, we have a list of roadways currently today, and we try to go in order. However, what we're doing right now is the board approved us to revamp our pavement management system. We are in the process of completely redoing it. We're going to have a software that is going to allow us as staff present to the board and the public different alternatives and be more transparent and be able to put out the how and why we selected some projects. Unfortunately, because of the lack of funding that we experienced, not just because of COVID-19, we're not gonna be able still to do a tremendous amount of projects based on this. But we take into account the condition of the asphalt. We take into the account the reason of the condition of the asphalt, the traffic volumes, type of roadways, whether they are collectors, like let's say 43rd Tower Road, or arterials like 441 and other state roads, or just a residential road. So we take into account the volumes, the use, and the condition of the pavement. Each of those factors are then put into like I would say, like a hopper, and turn around the hopper, and then you get the results based on the funding available. We will be able to run different scenarios. So if the board would like to know, hey, what could happen if we are able to implement a program that would be $13 to $15 million a year for resurfacing, we're going to be able to show that. Right now, unfortunately, we only are getting about, like I said, for next year, be about 2.5, 2.6 million. After that, I hope to be able to restore the million that we lost. But it'll be a great program. We'll be able to select other type of what we call pavement treatments. So most of us are used to just resurfacing. You see new asphalt going down, that awful smelling product blacktop. Some of us love the smell, but others hate it. We're going to be able to look to see, hey, maybe there's a roadway that the condition is not too bad, and we can do other things. There are other products out there that you can use instead of just going straight to a mill and resurface. There's several of them. I'm just going to mention some, microsurfacing. You can do what's called full depth reclamation. That's basically a reconstruct of the roadway. You can crack seals, slurry seals, chip seals, which we do in this county for lime rock roads, but chip seals can also be used for paved roads. City of Gainesville, I believe, implemented something called Cape seals, which is very similar to a chip seal, just recently in some residential roads. So those are the things that we're going to put into this program and see how we can get more benefit for the public based on the funding that we have available.
Now, I know one kind of controversial issue in Alachua County, and maybe other counties feel the same way, is, how do you balance repairing rural roads versus the roads that are more in and around, the bigger cities like Gainesville? I know that's can be controversial.
It is definitely something that is difficult to deal with. We in Alachua County since May of 2016, which is when I started working here in Alachua County, we have done several projects. County Road 236 was in the rural areas. It's the first one that we did after the board decided to provide the funding, and also we amended our comp plan to be able to allow us to do some of these projects. But we know we've done Tower Road, 43rd, Northwest 16th Ave is just completed. The Southwest 8th Avenue extension is done. We've done multi-use trails like the Post Springs Trail. We are in the process of completing 2 sidewalks at 91st and 94th. And other ongoing projects right now are the 8th Avenue Connector. We're doing the Equestrian Center out of Public Works in Newberry. That'll be the new fairgrounds locations also for the county. I know that's not transportation, but it's actually a project being done also out of Public Works. And we are currently doing Northwest 32nd Avenue. And we had just received bids last week to do a mill and resurface and County Road 219A, also mostly rural. So we have done rural roads, we do urban. Like I said before, traffic volumes are a consideration. And the use, so it's a balancing act. The board takes a lot of time discussing these projects. And with the new software that we're gonna have, we'll be able to mix in more type of projects and deliver hopefully better projects for the public.
So looking at public works in the future, what do you see as some of the major issues that are going to come around, in the next 5-10 years? Where do you see us going?
Well, I think the major issue for us is still going to be funding. I think that's a major issue for anybody. With the vehicles becoming more fuel efficient, our gas stack has not increased over the years. It has stayed basically flat. And with COVID-19, we saw a huge reduction. And the vehicles are going to continue to get more fuel efficient. So both at a state level and a national level, we're looking at other type of revenues. In Alachua County, the establishment, the adoption of the infrastructure surtax will be a tremendous help. We need a dedicated source of funding to be able to do to maintain our infrastructure. At a national level and state level, they're looking at vehicle miles travels, and other type of fees maybe. But that's a big challenge that we have over the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And I'm sorry for my phone is ringing, but it was just picked up. Now, the other challenge that we have in this county is stormwater, as you know, Ken. Right. And thank God for the board actually implementing the stormwater assessment a couple of years ago, that we now have a dedicated stormwater crew. We're going to continue to work maintaining our stormwater system. A lot of our system had not been maintained in 20 plus years, but we're going through several locations right now, opening up drainage ways. We have gone into what I call a legacy flooding subdivisions that we've had. We've had some improvements done in Robin Lane, Hayes Glen, what's called the Toyota Basin, Sunningdale, 69 Terrace. We're installing permanent discharge pipes for our ponds, where we are usually pumping, and we are cleaning a lot of retention basins. So that's also a challenge. We need to continue doing that and continue to maintain our stormwater so that we're not having flooding problems every time we have a large storm.
Ramon Gator is asking about the stormwater assessment. Is that county-wide? And maybe give a little more information about how that assessment is working for the county.
It is definitely in the unincorporated area of the county. My crews do not go into the incorporated area of the counties. I believe the cities had the option to be part of the assessment. But it's definitely in the unincorporated area of the counties. And the stormwater assessment is being used for two purposes: maintenance and also water quality projects. So the Environmental Protection Department for the county gets half of the funding, and Public Works gets the other half of the funding. So we take the half for maintenance, they're taking their half to do water quality projects.
We're getting close to running out of time. It's been a great conversation. Yep. Anything else you'd want to throw out there, Ramon? Well,
one of the things and large thing is the autonomous built vehicles that people keep talking about, or buses. Tesla is it's a pioneer in that, as you know. I mean, even big 18-wheelers. So that's also going to have impact on our funding. But the good thing about that is whether or not autonomous built vehicles start rolling out in the next few years or not, which by the way, I don't believe they will. A lot of the technology that is being implemented for autonomous vehicles is already coming into our current vehicles that we're purchasing. And that's making our roadways safer. And some of these features are going to become mandatory very soon. like, for example, detection of lane lines, detection of other adjacent vehicles, backup alarms, backup cameras, sensors, self-driving sensors that will keep you in your lane. So all those things are also a product of the work that are being done because of the autonomous vehicles efforts. And I think that's also resulting in a lot safer vehicles and a reduction in the fatalities. Although we still have a lot of fatalities, especially in Alachua County, we have seen a reduction in fatalities over the last few years.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of changes that will occur with the autonomous vehicles, especially in the design of the roadway systems.
Mm-hmm.
Going to
Definitely
make a major change in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's podcast, especially Ramon. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Great. You provided us some great information today about, the inner workings of the Public Works Department in Alachua County. If anyone has any other questions, you could email me at kvogel@jonesedmonds.com. I am Ken Vogel. This has been the Jones Edmonds Engineering Rocks podcast. So thank you again, Ramon, and thank you for everyone for being here.
Thank you, and God bless.